What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Nesson Studios. Michaela Vernava alongside Andre Kachatarian and joined via Skype by UFC.com's Matt Perino, who is in New York City and fresh off the UFC 217 press conferences.
Look at his hotel room.
Yeah, it looks like good digs they put you up in there.
Yeah.
It's a quick walk from Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
I know I'm still recovering from the Skype interview we just did with Michael Bisping and George St-Pierre. That was an intense experience.
It really was. There's a lot of hostility between the two combatants.
Yeah, we will have that interview later on in the show. Teaser here: Michael Bisping called Andre an idiot. So that's.
I've always liked Michael Bisping.
I always
You like
thought
him
I
even more
did. I'm traumatized after that interview. He was very intense. So it was the most intense interview of my career to date. I can say that for sure.
I do not doubt it with Michael Bisping. He's a very energetic fellow.
And we saw a lot of that hype going on at the press conference. He was all sorts of fired up. And this is the second UFC event at Madison Square Garden. Matt, can you compare the atmosphere, the energy there to these types of press conferences in other locations?
Honestly, what's amazing most about this one is usually without Conor McGregor, these press conferences can be hit or miss. This was a home run. If you weren't totally excited about UFC 217 before today, well, that all changed because Michael Bisping, we just talked about him, delivered in a big way. He was just spectacular at this press conference. In his element, I mean, the way that he kind of was bantering with GSP, kind of running the show throughout the whole press conference, was very entertaining.
Was Conor McGregor-esque?
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to do that, I guess.
Is that something you've seen evolve with him in his character? Because he's a guy that's been in the sport for a very long time, but has made this resurgence recently, becoming the champion, defending his belt, and now with this big title fight coming up.
I don't know if it's something that he hasn't always had, but what I think has happened is he's a host on UFC Tonight, and I think it's kind of evolved over time. Now he's really comfortable in this role. He's seen it being done by other people. He's studying the game, and he's bringing his natural self to it. He's a really funny guy. He's really laid back, and he's delivering in these moments. This press conference had a little bit of everything. It had that, entertainment value with Bisping, the rivalry and hatred of Cody and TJ, and then the intensity of Joanna versus Rose. There's a lot on the line in that fight too. This had a little bit of everything. This event, a lot of excitement.
Now, let's talk about the actual fight. A lot of people in the MMA world, even Bisping himself, coming out and saying that GSP's viewing him as an easier target than, say, Tyron Woodley. That's why he went up a weight class to fight him. What are your thoughts on that whole notion?
So before, I remember me and you, Andre, talked about this. There was a lot of talk about potentially GSP versus Conor McGregor going down to 155, and instead he went up to 185. To do that, he has to think that he has a good chance of beating Michael Bisping. A lot of people do. Anderson Silva did. Dan Henderson did. The problem is once you get in there, you learn very quickly that Michael Bisping is a well-rounded fighter. He's going to be there for 25 minutes, and he is going to keep coming forward for those 25 minutes. So George St-Pierre, who's been out of the game for 4 years, has a huge challenge. He's going up in weight, and he's facing a guy that just does not quit. He's one of the hardest guys to beat. He's got 20 wins in the UFC. It's a tall task, but he believes that he can take him out.
I don't know. I disagree. Look at Bisping's last fight. He fought a 46-year-old man. I mean, Dan Henderson's a great fighter, but it was a 46-year-old man. He's closer to Social Security than his prime heyday in fighting. I mean, I don't know. And it was a very close, tight fight. You remember that, right? UFC 204, I believe, correct? It was a close fight. I feel like GSP, even though he hasn't fought in a long time, I agree. I think he has a chance. I think he believes he can beat Bisping, and I think he probably will. He has a great, significant grappling advantage, 4.2 takedowns per 15 minutes compared to 1.1 takedowns, which Bisping has per 15 minutes. So I see him taking this to the floor, and I don't know if he'll finish. He hasn't finished a fight since 2009, so 8 years. But I think he will win this via decision. A
4-year hiatus is a very long time to be out of the sport, though. Matt, how much do you think there will be just the need to shake the rust, and are the nerves coming into this any higher because having been out for so long.
So, like the ring rust, I think that's a very real thing. For an example of somebody that didn't have any was Dominic Cruz, but his fight was over very early in the first round. GSP is not a finisher. He's not a stopper. He hasn't been in his last few fights, and he's been gone for 4 years. So when you're talking about you have to start every round standing up with Michael Bisping, who's bigger. He used to fight at 205 pounds early on in his career, and he hits hard. GSP has never been hit like he's going to be hit against Bisping, even though Bisping's not specifically a knockout fighter. He knocked out Luke Rockhold 2 fights ago. So this is a guy that, he's entering a whole new world. He's confident. He sparred with him 11 years ago, so he must have some type of confidence. But there are elements to this fight. It's going to start standing every time they start a round, which is 5 times, and he's going to have to take him down every time. As the 25 minutes goes along, the cardio issues, being gone for 4 years, you can't simulate a real fight like that.
And as far as Bisping goes, that Rockhold fight that you mentioned, don't forget that he had 2.5 weeks to prepare for that fight. So that being said, what are the intangibles kind of that Bisping brings to the octagon that are to his advantage? Because that was an impressive fight. No one thought that he was going to be able to win that, and then he goes and pulls it off on such short notice.
I think his biggest intangible is heart and experience. You can't replace that. The guy's won more fights in the UFC than anybody. 20 wins in the UFC, okay? He also is 4th most knockouts in the UFC history. Vitor Belfort is 2 knockouts more than Michael Bisping. We forget about that because, let's be honest, USADA is running wild in the sport right now. Bisping claims that he's been fighting a lot of people that were juiced up over the years. That affected his record. He's an Ultimate Fighter champion. He beat Anderson Silva, and he beat Dan Henderson, he beat Luke Rockhold. How he did it doesn't matter. The W is all that matters, and he did it. George St-Pierre is a great fighter, but so is Michael Bisping.
Well, the way you're talking, it sounds like you're siding towards Bisping in this fight. Is that the case?
Oh, it's tough. It's a tough call, but I think I am going with Michael Bisping. But could George St-Pierre win this fight? Of course. But that's why you got to tune in and watch this fight, because part of the fun of this is we don't know what we're getting. Are we getting the old George St-Pierre? Are we getting a new George St-Pierre, a guy more like the original version of the guy that was finishing fights? He said he wants to finish this fight. Well, he wasn't finishing fights when he left. And when he fought Johnny Hendricks, a power puncher who's now at 185, he got beat up quite a bit. If he fights like he did in that fight against Michael Bisping, it's going to be trouble for GSP.
That is the X factor, I feel like, is the hiatus and GSP being out for so long that prior to an hour ago, I really didn't feel comfortable saying, yeah, I think he's got a shot. But I don't know, something about the interview we just had, I'm kind of thinking just something about the aura that GSP had about him, his very relaxed, a nuance, seemed very confident without having to shout it from the rooftops. I don't know. I really was leaning Bisping before an hour ago, but now I'm kind of thinking he's seeming a little too confident. I'm thinking he might tire himself out with all this trash talking, whereas GSP is just kind of going. I was impressed by his composure.
GSP, he hasn't fought in 4 years, yeah, but he's been here before. He's been in these big situations, Madison Square Garden. He hasn't been in Madison Square Garden, but in these big fights, headlining fights. Bisping hasn't. This is the biggest fight of his career, and he's talking all this smack. I don't know. I think it's a little bit fake. I think it's unauthentic. He's trying to rattle GSP, but it clearly isn't bothering him. It's never bothered him. He's never been a trash talker, I think. And again, you talk about the actual fighting. GSP has a huge advantage statistically when he's on the ground. So, and all this hiatus talk, Bisping hasn't fought in a year and a half either. I mean, no one's talking about that. Year and a half. When's the last time Bisping fought? It's been a year and a half.
I don't know, Matt, year and a half compared to 4 years?
I mean, it's fair. It's been a year, Andre, though. It's been a year, right? 204 was about a year ago.
Okay.
Or more.
But it's still a long time.
But I understand your point.
Well, I think we can all agree that it will be an entertaining fight. I think that's the consensus that we've got here among the three of us.
So you're going with St-Pierre?
I am, yes.
It's 2-1 St-Pierre, I guess. So
yeah.
Let's move on now to the next fight.
Yeah, Garbrandt and Dillashaw. What I think is very interesting about this fight, the fact that they are former teammates. Matt, how do you think this will play into the fight, or will it?
So they're completely, I believe, different fighters at this point. So I don't know if that necessarily will play as big of a role here as what I like to look at is how they both performed against Dominic Cruz. Cody Garbrandt absolutely dominated Dominic Cruz. No one does that. When TJ fought him, there's an argument that can be made that TJ won that fight, but didn't dominate him. So one of the things that Cody's going to count on is his knockout prowess. I think he's 7th in UFC history with knockdowns per minute, like 7th highest ratio in UFC history. That's crazy. He just started. He's a baby in the sport. I mean, TJ's still in his prime. These are two top caliber fighters meeting at the best time for both of their careers. They train together, yes, but I think that the guy that TJ trained with back in the day is not the champion that he'll face on Saturday.
Yeah, you look at it's a tough fight to pick. You look at the Vegas odds for not the first fight is basically a pick 'em. This one is also basically a pick 'em. I think Garbrandt might be a slight favorite, but I completely agree with everything Matt said here. Garbrandt just toyed with Dominic Cruz in that fight. And there were instances in that fight where he knocked him down, and rather than jump on him and finish the fight, he was like taunting him. You remember that, Matt? Like there was certain instances where he could have finished that fight, but he kind of like he got excited or something. Maybe it was youth enthusiasm or something. He got into the moment.
Celebrating prayer over the end zone.
Yeah, exactly. But he still ended up winning the fight. He dominated the fight. I'm more excited about this fight than the headlining GSP event, but.
They were an entertaining pair at the press conference as well. They had a good back and forth going, and Bisping even said to GSP, hey, that's how you do a back and forth, because whereas it was Bisping just hurling insults, which real quick, they were funny. Lizard impregnated by aliens. I jotted these down during the press conference.
Call him a stockbroker?
This is a history teacher was what Bisping was saying to GSP. Well, he said GSP said nothing back, whereas Dillashaw and Garbrandt were... I couldn't even really hear what they were saying because they were both just screaming over each other.
It's amazing. Like, so the way that this rivalry has come together is interesting because the beef actually isn't TJ and Cody. It's TJ and Uriah Faber. But by default, it becomes Cody's problem because they're teammates still. But what's so special about this fight isn't necessarily the beef. It's that these two guys can claim to be the best 135-pounders on the planet. They're in their prime. They both believe they're better than the other. They've sparred. They've gone at it in the gym, and now we've had almost a year for this one too to prepare for this fight. It was supposed to happen in July. Cody got hurt, and we've just been waiting for it. And the anticipation is builded and builded and builded. They went at it on The Ultimate Fighter, and now we're finally here. We're going to get it. And it's the co-main event. It's kind of insane.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. It's go ahead, actually. I'll let you speak.
You brought up the slight controversy surrounding Dillashaw and Cruz. How much of that do you think fuels Dillashaw still to this point now wanting to prove that if he can beat Garbrandt, who beat Cruz, that maybe he did deserve the belt all along?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it bothers him a lot. I think he truly believes he won that fight. I think that you can make an argument for it. I've gone back and watched it several times. I could score 3-2. TJ could score 3-2. Dom was a close fight. And to then see Cody do what he did against Dominic was just spectacular. Listen, TJ doesn't have the boxing that Cody did. That was the big difference in that fight. He really just touched Cruz, and Cruz couldn't hit him. There's a couple numbers that really stick out in this fight. Cody Garbrandt has never been taken down in the UFC.
I was just going to bring that
TJ
up. Stole my stat, Matt. Come on.
But what's interesting about this is he really depends on the takedowns to be successful. He took Cruz down a couple times in his last fight. You go back and watch the film. He landed a few takedowns in that fight. He likes to combo his striking and his wrestling. And against Cody, who's an elite level boxer, he has to land takedowns, but Cody's never been taken down. Yeah. So it's interesting.
That's exactly, I was going to bring that up. 100% takedown defense. You get Cody Garbrandt on his feet, power puncher. I'm going to go with Cody in this fight. I think Dillashaw's a fantastic fighter, and I think he should have won that fight against Dominic Cruz. That was here. It was in Boston. Yeah, it was TD Garden. I think he should have won that fight. It was very close, as you mentioned. But what was that, 2 years ago? A lot has changed. Cody's in his prime now. He's a lot younger. This is his time. He's going to be a face of UFC for a very long time. This is going to be a signature title defense for him. He's going to show that he's the man in that division. And And the underrated storyline going into this fight is the winner of this fight will probably go down a weight class. It might go down a weight class to fight Demetrius Johnson to be a 2-weight champion. So whoever wins this fight, there's a lot at stake for them.
I'm leaning Garbrandt in this one too. Matt, what about you?
I'm going to go with Cody Garbrandt. I think, like you guys said, the numbers kind of stack up. I think it's going to be a war, though. I think it's going to be where Garbrandt is really tested more than he's ever been tested in his career. TJ has a gas tank. He'll get hit and he'll keep coming. I mean, he's gotten hit in most of his fights. So I think that Cody talked about chin issues. I don't think TJ has that, and I think TJ will land a takedown this fight. I think for the first time in his career, Garbrandt will be on the map. But the problem is, he's so well-rounded as well that I think that his strength, his power, what he does there down in California with Team Alpha Male, he'll get back up, and he's just going to be too good on the feet.
Well, while Garbrandt has never been taken down, Joanna Jędrzejczyk never been defeated, and that was the most interesting takeaway that I had from the press conference, was her saying that is much more important to her, while she's also on the brink of being able to tie Ronda Rousey for most women's title defenses, that she's not really eyeing that. As far as the records go, she says that staying undefeated is more important and that she will retire undefeated. Does that begin to be a weight on a fighter's shoulders when you're trying not to? Obviously, I don't know how to phrase this question really, I guess, because obviously you go into every fight trying not to lose, but I mean, that's impressive to go undefeated your entire career.
You never want to approach any of these fights like not overly confident, and you don't want a distraction like an undefeated record. But I mean, she's shown she's the best women's fighter right now in the game. Look at this stat that I pulled up. Ever since she won the title against Carla Esparza, during her title defense, and including that championship fight, she's outstruck opponents 971 to 328. That's more than 600 times that she's outstruck opponents. There's just no competition. I mean, she's fighting Rose Namajunas right now. She's a minus 600 favorite right now. I mean, Vegas is a huge favorite, and I mean, people are like, okay, why is she fighting Namajunas? It's because who else is she going to fight? She's beat the number 1, number 2, and number 3 contenders. Now she's fighting a number 4 contender. Does Namajunas have a shot in this match?
Her last fight, too, against Jessica Andrade, I thought that was a great fight. And I thought that was one that if she was going to have some trouble, that might be it. And that was. She had to kind of grind it out in that. But she's impressive. She
did have trouble against Karolina Kowalkiewicz as well in last year at Madison Square Garden. But at the end of the day, she's the best.
Mm-hmm. See, the thing you got to remember, too, at 115 pounds, it takes a really, really elite striker to knock someone out. And Joanna has not, I don't think she's ever been dropped once, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think back to the Claudia. Oh, in the first Claudia fight, she was dropped once. But she's a superstar. I mean, we are seeing the birth of a superstar. She's going to tie Ronda Rousey, probably defend one more time to break it. And I think, Andre, I've talked about this a few times. She is this, blossoming star that fans love. She got the biggest pop at the press conference today by far. As soon as she spoke for the first time, the place erupted. In New York City, where stars are made. I mean, she's now, for the second time, going to be featured in a title fight. But with all that said, and as great as she's been, and we have all the numbers, we put up an infographic that we could barely fit all the stats on the page on UFC.com last week. She's so amazing. Rose Namajunas for a long time has been a heralded prospect that just is finally starting to come into her own. The way that she fought Carolina, she lost, but the way that she fought her was very impressive. She took out Michelle Waterson, Paige Van Zandt. I think there was another fight. She'll be a problem for Joanna if Joanna doesn't come out and finish her. If the fight goes to the ground where Joanna said that she'd be comfortable kind of going back and forth with Rose, I don't think you want to do that. That's where she's the strongest. Dana White called her potentially the next Ronda Rousey when she was on The Ultimate Fighter. She's had a lot of hype for a long time. She's very skilled, but like we said, I mean, it's going to be a surprise when somebody finally beats a Joanna or a Demetrius Johnson. It's just going to be who is going to be that surprise.
Here's the difference that I see in Joanna and Ronda, and it's interesting when you're talking about the star power, and I noticed that too. The place erupted when she spoke, and she is so in the limelight, headlining fights, but seems to be very focused on her job, on fighting in the octagon. Whereas at this point, I feel like on Ronda's journey, she was in the media much more, sort of doing the, I don't want to call it the Hollywood thing, but I guess kind of. And Joanna doesn't seem to me to be that way. She is great with media and is definitely a fan favorite, but I feel like a very genuine fan favorite in the octagon and focused on the task at hand and not on being a movie star.
Yeah, very good points. I mean, she's not like, outside of the UFC, I feel like people don't know who she is. Ronda Rousey, sports fans, everyone knows who she is.
That's what I'm saying.
And maybe it might be because she's not from the United States. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe she's because she's from Poland. Her English wasn't always the strongest early on in her career, and now she's kind of relating to the media, to the fans and whatnot, and becoming a name. But I think, yeah, you're right. The more she wins, the more casual sports fans will know who she is.
Matt, you're around these fighters all the time. How much of a delicate balance is that? Because so much of this sport is the promotion aspect, but we saw Conor McGregor come out and say that he wanted to focus on his fight and not be in the limelight and doing the whole media circus because that it distracted him, and that was what caused him a loss. So, but again, it is such a big part of the sport. So juggling that, what's it like for them?
It's a big. No one except Conor McGregor has ever gone through the media requirements that a Ronda Rousey went through. Even Joanna now in her prime, coming up into like the superstar status, she's still not even doing. She's not getting the. She's doing some stuff actually. Actually, it's just starting. So we'll see how she handles it. She did a thing with GQ recently. I think she did something with Barstool for her last fight. So there's a lot of things starting to happen for Ronda once she really crossed the threshold at like maybe 3 or 4 title fights. She was a massive star. She was in Fast and Furious movie. But I think Ronda is a passionate competitor. She doesn't like to lose. But for Joanna, it's her whole identity. She doesn't care about anything but being champion and retiring undefeated. Rousey said the same thing, but I think over time she started to get interested in other things like acting, and she met Travis Brown and wanted to get married and have a family, and those kind of started to be like really important things in her life. For Joanna, it's all about keeping that 0 and keeping that title.
It's going to be a good card overall.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the whole entire main card, not to take away from the 3 championship fights. You got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson making his return after losing to Tyron Woodley. That's going to be an interesting fight to watch. I'm excited to see Mickey Gall, to be honest with you. I don't know about you. I like Mickey Gall.
I like Mickey Gall too. I think right now he's entering an interesting phase of his career where he's going to start getting real tests. Okay, I mean, I'm not so sure that he has had a legitimate real fight yet. Yeah, so we're going to see what kind of fighter he is now, because Randy Brown's a real fighter.
Yeah.
Not that Sage Northcutt isn't, because he had his trouble with that, and Sage is always improving. I think he has a ton of potential, but he's still super young. I think Mickey has talked himself into this position, like on Dana White looking for a fight, and now he's starting to get the fights. But with that comes the competition starts to get a little bit better. So I'm interested to see how he handles it.
And I'm looking at the what was I going to say? Curtis Blades. That's a big heavyweight showdown against Alexei Oleinik.
I knew we wouldn't get out of here without you talking about Curtis Blades.
I love Curtis Blades. You know how much I love Curtis Blades.
He's your favorite.
My eyes will be on UFC Fight Pass on Saturday in the preliminary card. You know I'm going to be watching that. Keep your eye on him. He's going to go after Stipe one day.
You heard it here first.
All right, you keep telling me that. I know.
All right, so it's going to be a great weekend. And then before we sign off here, just looking ahead, it has been announced that the UFC is returning to Boston, which is very exciting. For UFC 220 in January. What was that?
I'm so excited. I was at Connor's fight, and then I was at Cruz TJ. I love Boston. And I'm so excited to bring a pay-per-view there. Like, it was so cool because Boston was the only city off the top of my head that got a title fight for an FS1 card because it's such a huge market, and now we're bringing the real the pay-per-view big show. Who knows who's going to be on it? It's going to be, I think it's going to be an awesome card.
Dana White's hometown, and who knows? What do you think? Conor McGregor and going a step further, McGregor Diaz 3? Could that be going down in Beantown?
Hey.
Because a lot of, I'm Irish, big Irish population here, especially, Southie, but all over the Bay State and in Boston. So it kind of makes sense.
Week of the AFC Championship 2, you get McGregor fighting on the Saturday and the Patriots and the Bills on that Sunday AFC Championship. How amazing would that be?
I'm actually running late right now. I'm going to the Bills game tonight. I got to get a train and I got to get across town.
Color Rush!
Oh, I'm so excited.
Are you
He's
a
from
Bills
Buffalo,
or
yeah.
Bills
I'm from
Mafia,
Buffalo.
man. All right.
But I like Boston a lot.
Bills are looking good this year. Weird NFL season.
Yeah. So we were 5-2 with Trent Edwards a few years ago, and we all know how that turned out. So you got to keep the optimism down here. We don't all have Tom Brady's to lean on, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Fair. But Matt, what do you think about that possibility of McGregor? Got any inside information?
No inside information. I mean, they're talking right now. We have no idea what's going to happen. I think wherever that fight ends up taking place, I know Dana loves doing Conor in Vegas. He's talked about that on a few shows that he wants to do it in Vegas. And there's a December card and a March card in Vegas. So, or I think March. I don't know. I know there's a December show in Vegas.
Yeah, that's the last, the day before New Year's Eve.
Yes.
December 3rd.
And so, but I think he's going to fight Ferguson. That's the one thing that I do really strongly believe in. I think it's going to be a title defense against the interim champion. I think the Nate Diaz fight makes so much sense. I get it, but because you want to see the rubber match and it's a big draw. But it's hard to have a title match when you have an interim champion and not have the interim champion be in the fight.
Yeah.
So I think that it's going to end up being Ferguson. They both have talked about. He had the Instagram post where he said Tony, and he was, the GTA garb, and I think Conor's calling a shot there. I think he wants to fight Ferguson, wants to quiet a lot of the critics who said that he always avoids the tough matchups and he hasn't defended his belt. Well, now he's going to take the toughest matchup in the division, defend his belt, and then we'll see how things play out.
All right, well, we will let you get off to the Meadowlands and watch some Thursday night football, and thanks for joining us, Matt. This has been fun.
Thank you, Matt.
And now, here is our aforementioned interview with Bisping and GSP. It's interesting.
Enjoy it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Nesson Studios. Michaela Vernava, Andre Kachatourian, joined by Michael Bisping and George St-Pierre via Skype, fresh off the UFC 217 press conferences, which were very entertaining. This being the second event, guys, at Madison Square Garden. What can the crowd expect this weekend?
You're going to expect George St-Pierre to be as boring as he always is. He's come out here, he's going to give you a bunch of vanilla answers now. He's not going to say anything exciting. He's not going to do anything to, get people interested in this fight. And he's going to fight the same way, just like he used to. He's run out of cash, so he's come out of retirement. He's come up a weight class because he can't take his steroids and remain as lean as he once was. Plus, he's got fat in his old age. So you can expect George to come out and try and lie on top of me. That's what we're going to see.
You're saying a lot about him.
And fight like a man and knock him out.
Michael, you're saying a lot about him.
A lot of
what will
BS.
you do to make
a lot
the
of
fight
BS. Saturday night is going to be a new middleweight world champion, GSP.
Yeah. Keep dreaming, buddy. You ain't going to do anything, George. You will not win this fight. You know it. You're already scared. You're already scared with that
I'm
stupid
going to do
grip.
whatever I want to do, whatever I want to do.
Okay, you're going to do whatever, whenever. You're going to hanker yourself to the ground. You're going to swing for the fences. Shut up. Shut up.
Yes, I'm going to anchor myself in the middle of the octagon and swing for the fence.
Yeah,
that's what you want.
Michael,
this stupid boxing coach to try and help you. He ain't going to help you do anything, mate. What about Faraz Zahabi, the guy that's been with you forever? Hey, let's talk about your mentor, Christophe Madou, who's left your camp, George. Left your camp because he said you look like shit. Said you look terrible. What about that? What have you got to say about that?
You don't know anything about me, but you'll find out Saturday the hard way.
I know what he said, buddy. He said he left the camp and he won't be at the fight because you look like garbage. So you look terrible. You look fat. You look old and you look slow.
Michael, what do you have to say to
Saturday by an old and fat guy? My goodness, it's bad for your for your image, Michael. It's very bad for you.
Take me down, pal.
Michael, what do you have to say to critics who say that George St-Pierre went after you, moved up a weight class because you're an easier target than someone like Tyron Woodley?
No, critics didn't say that, you idiot. I said that. I said that. I said GSP picked me because he thinks that I'm an easy fight. That's because of what a little is. He doesn't want the hardest fights. See, if George loses to me, he's got an escape. Because, oh, well, I stepped up a weight class. But if he gets beat by Tyron Woodley, who's the welterweight champion, he's no longer the greatest welterweight of all time. So by him stepping up a weight class and taking on me, he's got an insurance policy. Well, he shouldn't have been able to do that because he went up a weight class. See, George thinks he's smart, but you can see straight through it. That is the attitude of a little scared.
Hey, listen, guys. You guys
one
are
thing
talking
he said
right
is
now.
true, that I'm smart. But it's another thing he
George,
says that is not true. I ain't losing to nobody.
I said
I'm
think
here
you're smart, bud.
to win.
Hey, guys.
You're obviously not smart. You can't even buy a suit that fits.
You guys right now are talking to a New England audience.
It fits in the 90s. You look like some bloody stupid gangster out of a bloody 90s Batman movie.
Hey, Michael. You guys right now are talking to a New England audience that's pretty serious about their sports, and we have Tom Brady, who seems to be defying Father Time. Technically, I don't know if you guys know this, but you guys are considered old in your late 30s. What can we expect from you guys just in terms of your age? How are you still performing at a high level? Because we see some pretty good performance from older guys in sports around here.
In my prime, I'm in my prime. I'm like wine, you know. When I get older, I get better. So I'm like a good wine, you know. I'm in my prime right now. Can't ask for a better moment to do this for me.
Fine wine. What other cliches you got for us, George? What other stupid moronic answers have you got? Listen, at the end of the day, well, George has been sat on his ass, avoiding fights. I've been fighting the best people in the world, and I've been beating them. I'm the champion of the world, 38, 48, 28, bloody 8. I could have beaten George when I was 8. I could beat him when I'm 58 or 68. I beat George all day, every day, any day of the week. So it doesn't matter about my age. Doesn't matter about George's age. Listen, look at George and look at me. Who would you want to fight? You'd pick George all day, every day. Look at the state of him.
So, Mike, why take this fight? There's so many other people in the middleweight class that are deserving of a title shot. Why take this one? If he's a scared guy.
I accepted a fight with Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero. Robert Whittaker won the interim belt, and then he injured himself. So, you know, I had to fight somebody. And George, like a little sending me messages through one of his coaches, please, we want the Bisping fight. We want it. Don't take any other fight. We want you, because he has an insurance policy if he loses, and because he thinks that I'm an easy fight. So I'm going to prove you all wrong. I'm going to prove George wrong, your coach wrong, all of you. You won't be laughing Sunday, George. You won't be laughing when you go back to Montreal.
You want to fight me because I'm the biggest payday, and you think I'm the easier one. But he's got it wrong. Yes, I'm a good payday for him, but I'm going to beat him up.
That is... To answer
then he's going to retire. That's what's going to happen.
George? Yeah, because you're an easy fight, George. Because you're an easy fight. I'm going to slap you around.
George,
easy fight, pal.
During the press conference, Michael called you a list of names: a history teacher, a stockbroker, a lizard, said you look like you're impregnated by aliens. I haven't heard you hurl a single insult back at him. Why?
Because I never... it is a stupid comment. What do you want me to answer to this? It's not my game. My game is Saturday night. I'm a fighter. Saturday night, I'm gonna throw everything I got at him. It's not, the fight haven't started yet.
You're doing a good job.
Does any of it get to you when he's calling you names like that? Does it bother you at all?
Yeah, you just smile all the time.
Nah, it doesn't. It amuses me. It's like a little kids saying stuff that nonsense stuff that it's amusing to me.
Because he's a joke. Look at him, he stands there with that stupid grin on his face in an ill-fitting suit, right, thinking he's still the big cheese from 2013. It's 2017, no one gives a shit that George is here. Nobody cares that George St-Pierre is fighting. So, but he's standing there, oh, I am the George, like he's a big deal. You're a joke, George. You are a joke.
Michael, is there one nice thing you can say about George? One nice thing.
Yeah, of course. I've got many nice things to say about him. But he's going to try and beat me up on Saturday, so I'll save it for Sunday. After I beat him up,
Can you each give each other one compliment?
Yeah, George.
He's a very angry person. He's a very angry person. Not only with me, with everybody. He just got into an argument with Jorge Masvidal. He's got argument with everybody. He's got problem with everybody. So it's not. This is not new. He's an angry person. He's not good in his own skin. He's got a lot of a hole that he can't fill on himself. That's a problem with this human being.
I'll take me over your skin any day, pal. Any day.
Can you give each other one compliment before we sign off here?
I've nothing nice to say about George until after the fight, so stop asking me to say that. I've told you.
I can give him a compliment. He's a great.
Is there anything you respect about his game, though?
He's quite good at it.
Yeah,
Michael, is there anything you respect about George's game?
We'll find out, pal.
So we'll tell us Sunday, he said. So we'll have to wait for that. Yeah. But guys, thank you guys so much for your time.
Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Thank you, guys.
Man, you gotta fix the mic. I can't hear anything. I don't hear anything. Bisping was talking. I can't hear nothing. Like blah 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 blah.
Wow.
Still just gonna go get my face that's across the room, put it back on. You're an idiot,
Yeah,
and I think I was
I'm
told to not ask.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna chalk it up to there was some audio issues. GSP couldn't really hear us when we started this interview. I just felt like I was just trying to scream some questions out there, and hey, it is what it is.
We'll blame it on the technical difficulties, but that's going to be a great fight. It's just a great prelude. Is that a word? Prelude? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
Prelude.
Precursor.
Foreshadowing.
It's
going to be, one of those.
Should be a good fight.